September 4th to you all. This is my first time doing a Zoom at home for collaborative with 3 little kids doing Zoom school. So I'm sure this is going to be flawless. And so if I have to excuse myself for a minute, Lisa said she would take over completely. Okay, so I am going to share my screen and we'll get going. Okay. So thank you for joining us today. If at any time throughout the meeting you have a question, please feel free to use the chat feature. It is hard for me now seeing the screen to see that. So Lisa and Chris, I think, are going to man that. Also, you could just interrupt and start talking. That would be fine with me as well. So our agenda for today, we are going to give a little more update on the CSSRS training guide. David Lopez is going to talk about the Suicide Prevention Lifeline, his annual report. I'm going to do a little update on the WAS team in our first year that was just concluded end of June. Then we're going to review all of the upcoming September events, which is Suicide Prevention Awareness Month. We have a few announcements at the end, and then of course we'll leave time for any Q&A. Okay, so as in August, we had Ken and Gilberto kind of talk about all the work that they've done with this CSSRS and the training guide that they created. Wanted to let you know that it is now available on the Fresno Cares website, and you can go there, click it and get all the information you want, as well as a link to Ken's video is on there. And right now, DBH is working on a general policy and procedures guide. And it's currently being drafted for organizations, but you can kind of change that, manipulate it however it best fits your own organization. So please feel free to go there and check that out. And when you go to Fresno Cares, I mean, it really is the hub of all information. So everything we're going to cover today will be on Fresno Cares, especially with all the upcoming trainings and seminars and conferences that are coming up for September Prevention Awareness Month for suicide. So please make that your one-stop shopping. Is David Lopez on the line?
I don't think he's on the line yet. If you want to wait a few minutes, we have a lot of people coming on still.
Oh, we do? Okay. So we'll do that.
Hey, Brandy.
Yeah.
On that, the sample policy for the CSSRS implementation, that one we should have it ready to post probably early next week. We're just doing the last cross-reference of the definitions, which was something Ken had suggested. The definitions were from the suicide prevention plan, but we wanted to make sure that they didn't say something different than what's in the CCRS and cause any confusion for people as they're implementing. And then we're also going to, once we have that out and available to everyone, along with what you're showing on the screen right now, DBH is going to then make a push for all of our contracted providers to start basically implementing the CCRS as a screening tool through some type of a PPG. So from our standpoint, it's not going to be like, hey, here's a cool resource. It's like, here's the resource for you to move into actually some implementation of that. So, and okay. We'll hopefully have some updates on that by next month.
Awesome. Thanks, Ahmad. How are we doing, Lisa? Are we still having more?
We're still having people come in. David's now on the line, so.
Okay. So, does David have slides? No slides, just talking?
No, I got slides, but I could.
David could share his screen.
Yeah. Okay, so I'll turn it over to David, and you maybe just wait a minute, kind of as more people jump on, David, and then you can take it from there.
Hey, did something just change? Sorry.
I unshared my screen.
Oh, okay. Wait, let's see.
You should be able to share, David.
Let's see here. Yeah. So you want me to hold off, or you just want me to go?
You could go.
All right. So this is, can you guys see it?
Yes.
So this is our annual report, just kind of going over what we've seen over the last fiscal year and some of the what's really transpired, and it kind of tells a story of what kind of calls we've gotten, the type of call increases that we've seen, some of the challenges that we faced, and some opportunities we've come across to go ahead and meet those challenges, and what we're doing to go ahead and keep going against that. So it's just going to provide an overview of the program, report out on call volumes, provide general information about suicide, some information about outreach amidst the pandemic. That's just thanking our stakeholders and everyone else that supports the program, because we're funded through Fresno County and 6 other counties throughout the valley. And that's our primary stakeholder county. So thank you to all of them. Again, things that this group knows, but just to reiterate, suicide continues to be the 10th leading cause of death in America, the 2nd leading cause of death to those under the age of 18. I was reading some research, and it looks like it's actually creeping up to the age of 23, the 2nd leading cause of death. And I was citing that, and I was like, okay, they're finalizing the numbers. That's sad. And it was classified as an epidemic in 2018. Again, 48,000 people died by suicide in 2018. That's 1 death in every 11 minutes. People who've had serious thoughts about suicide is 10.7 million. Planned for suicide, 3.3 million. And attempted suicide is 1.4. Some vulnerable populations who continue to be vulnerable are males when compared with females. Both males and females ages 45 to 54. Veterans are at a rate 1.5 greater than non-veterans. Those living in rural areas, which a lot of our community is living in rural areas here in the valley. LGBTQ adults and youth. One thing we did see, so for the local call volume for us, we had 19,210 calls that were directly driven out of the valley. That's the highest amount of call volume that we've ever had since I've been there and in our history. So, which is, can be a good thing, at least the resources being used, but we're going to go into some things that are telling a little bit more of a different story. So of the stakeholder counties, Fresno County had 10,657 calls, which was the highest call volume that Fresno County has ever driven directly from to the lifeline. Kings County was at 1376, Madero was at 1059. Mariposa is always relatively small, that's 50 calls. Merced was at 1958, which is really high for them. Stanislaus was at 1448, and Tulare County was at their highest ever at 2722. So a general increase of all the call volumes across the board that we've seen. And again, you can see that Fresno made up the lion's share of everything. So just when we go into call types, this is just kind of talking or speaking to what the different call types are that we categorize. An active rescue is anytime emergency services must be contacted to ensure the safety and preserve life. This is with or without the caller's consent. Now it is our policy that we want to inform the caller as much as possible and get their consent when we are sending active rescue, because we know that leads to a better transition between just someone knocking on your door and saying, hey, we're here, what's going on? And that's what we try to do. However, there are people who are evasive or may not want to tell us. So the team's really good about finding or picking up parts of their conversation, a lot like investigators, to go ahead and relay that information to emergency services and get the help there. A talk down call is when anyone has the means and intent to engage in a suicide attempt, and our counselor is able to deter a high-risk caller from attempting suicide without activating emergency services. So they're really spending the time working with them, getting them to be in a safer place. And then at that point, we feel safe that they're safe for now, and that we can go ahead and either offer a follow-up, or that someone else can be there with them, or they have a sound enough safety plan so we don't have to act in that. Crisis call is any call who's experiencing any type of crisis, including suicidal ideation and intent, and an emotional crisis. So an emotional crisis is, we treat that with the same level of respect as a suicidal crisis. And this is a very upstream approach where we want to go ahead and de-escalate or provide some sort of crisis counseling to every caller that we get, so they don't get to that level where they're actually acting on any one of those thoughts. The other types of calls are warm calls, and that's when someone's not experiencing immediate crisis, but just seeking support. A third party is anyone that's just calling about information, and I have that slide wrong. And a miscellaneous call is the type of call which includes wrong numbers, silent calls, and hangups. So here's when it gets interesting. So out of those call types that we just spoke of, for the Valley, we had 103 active rescues, 41 talk downs, and 13,000 crisis calls. Historically, it's been inversed where the amount of active rescues would be where the talk down calls are. So that's a bit alarming. So what we've been doing is looking at all the active rescues and pulling the data and reading exactly what happened and listening to those calls to try to get a better idea of what's going on. So a lot of people are not willing to engage in a safety plan that we've seen that have engaged in active rescue, or they're just so fed up and tired that they're expressing that they're just calling in almost for a witnessing effect, where they're saying like, yeah, I already took some pills, and they're having second thoughts, but they're still not sure if they want to get the help or not. So they're either in the act or already doing something, and we're having to respond a lot faster to go ahead and get them the help they need to keep them alive. Talk downs 41 and 1328. So as I continue to review this, I hope to have more information so I can glean some good data points from this and see what we can do. Maybe there's a target population or something that can come out from this that we can see, hey, we need to get more prevention activities around this. But that's what we saw. Warm calls, 1791, third party calls, 1931, and miscellaneous was 3,000. Here's been the impact of COVID-19 amongst our call center. We had an increased call volume throughout both the local and CVSPH lines. What the local line is the 888 number that we originally had, which is still is active to our crisis center, and then just the 800 National Suicide Prevention Lifeline. Those are gated to us throughout the Valley. So either way they come in, that we saw increase. More complex calls with multiple areas of concern. The calls that we're getting are compounded with a lot of different events that are going on in their life. Increased handle time. So the time it takes to actually work with someone on the phone has increased, and it's increased by about 12 minutes now per call, which is a pretty big jump. And the increase in active rescues that we just spoke to. Any questions on that so far?
David, we did have one question that says, how does stakeholder county call volumes compare to populations in those areas? I see Mariposa as low and Fresno is high. However, I'm interested in the percentage of population also.
I don't know that answer. I do. You said Mariposa. Was that the question, Brandy?
Yeah.
Yeah, Mariposa is a very small county, and that's historically been what they've been showing. Fresno is the biggest county in the Valley, and then second to Tulare. Stanislaus is about the same size. But Fresno gets the lion's share of calls, but we're gated to all of them. So I don't know the actual percentage size. Sorry about that.
Okay.
I think if you're looking at like almost 900,000, just under 1 million people in Fresno County, and that number of 10,000, you're looking at about like a 1% of the population. But again, that's misleading if you're looking solely at what that is in terms of percentage, because you could have someone that called multiple times. You could have somebody that called on behalf of several people. So yeah, when you look at it like by counties, larger counties should, I mean, in theory, just because the number of people they have a higher number. But I think if you go just by percentage. If you're looking at, well, only 1% or 2% of Fresno's making a call, doesn't, take away the fact of 10,000 people felt that they needed help and really needed to reach out and talk to someone. So I'm Jeffrey's on here. He might be able to figure out the actual number, but
Yeah,
I'd just be careful when we're looking at those, because sometimes numbers don't really tell the whole story.
yeah, I still think it's a lot, or I'm telling you it's a lot. It's straight up what's happening, and the amount of time that's happening. It's a big deal. So the increased suicide risk. Now, this is something I've spoken to in some of our steering committee meetings, but I'll say it here in this platform as well. So looking at the increased suicide risk, that's what's coming up for the next 18 to 24 months once we're through this event. Because we have to view COVID as a natural disaster, it's critical that we start to look at and plan our prevention activities post-event. This type of event that we're amidst right now, if I don't know if Ahmad spoke to this or anyone spoke to this yet, but there was 17 deaths by suicide, correct, Brandy, in July?
In June.
In June. And that's one of the biggest, I mean, that's alarming right there. And it kind of goes along to what I'm going to speak to right now, because when an event tends to happen, like a natural disaster, let's take a wildfire, for instance, right? Firefighters come in, everyone's out there, there's some resources put into it. So kind of like what the government did, everyone was kind of rallying around, we're going to fight this, we're going to beat this, we're going to get you guys some money, you're not going to lose your jobs, this and that. And that's the honeymoon stage. You're feeling supported, there's maybe a sense of community, we're all in this together, we're just going to get through it, it's going to pass. However, once the realization sets in, kind of like what we're in now, disillusionment is what happens next. Being that you're really left all alone, you're having to deal with this by yourself and trying to figure out, well, okay, I don't know what's going on here. So that's when the increased risk of death but death by suicide and attempts to suicide increase. Social connectedness alone will not offset the long-term outcomes of severe disaster, and the negative psychological effects may not emerge until years after it occurs. And this is talking about some things that Kessler found. PTS symptoms and suicidality increased after a 1-year term and persisted beyond a 2-year term of post-disaster. But the symptoms tended to subside after that time. And looking at some trauma work I was reviewing, the longer this event occurs, the increased, the pronounced factors of trauma is going to be there. So again, if you look at an ACEs score for children, the adverse child experiences that they're going through right now, it does fall in line with that as this being a bad effect. So we really have to look at what we're going to do to mitigate these effects long term, because we don't know what it's going to look like. We just know that this is coming. So everything we can do in this collaborative to go ahead and help each other reach out, and our prevention work is going to be imperative as we go through this event together. Just a reminder, it's really important to monitor your own mental and physical health. Everyone that's doing this work or that's in the collaborative, you can take on a higher level of stress. We are all under more stress these days. So know your signs of stress of yourself, your team, and your loved ones. Please check in on yourselves. It's really important. Do check in on each other more frequently. And it may look, maybe it's not in person, but maybe it's a phone call, it's text, whatever type of medium you want. Do so. And as many of our normal activities have been impacted, I'm just going to continue to say, look for alternative ways to engage. And one of the things I tell my team, and we tell our callers on the phone, it's not about what you can't do, but more so looking at what you can do during this time and really shifting that perspective. There was one person, I've been on the lines lately as well, and it's people were saying, I can't, it's really hard. I don't really know how to handle, like I've lost my job, I've done this, like I'm trying to find work. And so you're hearing the compound effects. Me and my wife have been fighting more. I'm having a struggle with my children. I'm a teacher now. They're kind of going through what's transpiring. And as I'm hearing it, I was like, I really wanted to do some reframing and kind of shift him over to a different place. And I said, hey, I bet you used to work too much in the field, not to go too far. He's like, yeah, I spend a lot of time at work. I said, yeah. And I said, so wouldn't it be nice if you were at home with your family more? And he was like, yeah. I was like, so you got that. And he's like, okay. And I go, wouldn't it be nice if you could spend some more time cooking at home with your family? He's like, yeah. I go, so you got that. Take away the fact that it was forced upon you, and there's some positives out there too. And he was like, thanks. I didn't take. I mean, it's just small little shifts, because we're really just trying to get them through that moment and change their perspective at that time. That's the biggest thing. To hear them, validate their concerns, let them know that they're not alone. I always say or use this analogy, it's like a balloon that's about to pop. It's full of air. It's really hot. And we just want to release some of that pressure so they can, go about the world again. And so doing some reframing and validating really help that color. And then, another thing that we're seeing is the social unrest because we take calls from across the state and are part of the Lifeline. That is something we've heard, and we've got them both from people who had speaking about police brutality, racism, social injustice, hate crimes, and protest. We've handled both calls from those who participated in the protests, those who participated in the riots, those who've been attacked or threatened by it. And that was interesting for my team to speak to me about, and actually hearing some of those calls. Again, just the counselors professionally provided emotional support and actively listened, validating their feelings, assessing for suicide risk. And one of the biggest things that we are assessing for now that we historically didn't is homicidality. So we're really checking on violence now, not to make anything alarming, but just know that we are doing that and tracking. That's it for me today. If you guys have any questions, put them in the chat box, but that's what I got.
Awesome. Thank you, David. One question that did come up is, will we have access to these slides that David shared?
Oh, yeah. Oh, hold on. Wait, I got one more thing. Sorry. Can I share real quick? Yeah, I can send it out to everyone.
Cool. You could probably just send it to Solomon and he could send it out with his minutes after the meeting.
Can you see this?
Yes.
This is what outreach looks like in the future, right? So this is, so we have conducted 4 drive-through events. We're going to do more, and I know Lisa's going to talk about, and this is just a quick snapshot of what's going on in the Valley. This is actually in Oakhurst, and everything's with ourselves and other agencies that we're partnering with. This is Camarena and Madera County Behavioral Health. That one was in Oakhurst. This is one we did in Fresno. I'm sure Lisa may be talking about this later. But this is the first one we actually did. So it was our pilot program. It's working out. So we're thankful for that. Some more that we've done, Madera outreach events. And then this was in Chowchilla. So pretty good turnouts. All right, now I'm gonna stop sharing and get off. All right.
Hey, David.
Yes.
This is Michael. That was really great. Do you have, I don't mean to put you on the spot, of those 10,000 calls, let's say in Fresno, do you have any idea of the age kind of breakdown?
I do. I'm finalizing numbers right now. If you give me, hold on. I have to pull up the Fresno only report. Looking at the Valley alone, the majority of our calls as an overshot were between 16 to 25. Second highest was 26 to 59 age ranges. Then it goes down to 0 to 15 and then over 60 in that order.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Are there any other questions, anyone? Thank you, David, for putting all that together for us. Okay, if you do have a question that comes up between now and the end, feel free to throw it in the chat box, or at the end we'll have a question time as well. Okay, let me proceed. David, did you hear that question from Solomon?
Yes. Oh, I thought I was talking.
I think you're on mute.
Yeah, so a warm call is any call that the individual is not in a suicidal or emotional crisis. They're just really reaching out for someone to talk to. maybe some support, but there's no, they're not identifying a crisis.
Perfect.
Thank you. Any other questions? Okay. I wanted to give a quick little update about the LOSS team. We just completed our first year. We went live July 15th of 2019 and completed the fiscal year for the county June 30th. So this is an overview of our numbers for that first year. Some of you have already seen this, like with the steering team, and but hopefully it's kind of, I did start off with the numbers just overall because these are the questions that we always get the most. So this has nothing to do with the fiscal year. This is just what we're at to date. So 114 in 2018, 110 in 2019, and through August 31st, we were at 62. So it looks promising that we will end well below the 110. That is the hope. So those are the last 3 years. And this is a month by month over the last 3 years. So as David had referenced, in June, we had 17, which is the highest month that I could see in any recent past. I don't know. I think Kelly's on here. You can speak to that if you've ever seen anything over 17. But we did have a 16 and a 15 in 2019 as well. But thankfully, after that 17 in June, we went back down to 4 in July and then up again in August to 8. So during this fiscal year, that since the LOSS team became an active resource in the community, we had 95 suicides from those dates above, 79 of those being men and 16 of those being women. And this is the race breakdown as reported by the coroner's office. Significantly, white is the majority, and then Mexican American follows. You can interrupt anytime if you have a question. Okay, so these are the zip codes of where the suicides take place, and the ones that are highlighted yellow are the majorities. So as we will reference later on in this slide presentation, we do have some 2 resource fairs, drive-through resource fairs coming up, and they will take place in the 93611 as well as the 93722 zip codes, hoping to engage those communities that live in those population zip codes. But these are all of where the zip codes took place. There were 8 unknowns, but okay, so these are specific to the LOSS team. There, in that year I mentioned, we had 95 suicides during that time frame. The LOSS team was able to respond to 69 of those, 39 being active, where we went immediately. First responders were still on the scene. The coroner had not arrived yet. The family was present, and we were able to provide resources and support to the family immediately. Delayed, we did 22 of those. And a delayed call is something that maybe for one reason or another, we didn't go out immediately. So that could be maybe the family, there was no family on scene. There was nobody to respond to. Perhaps we did not get the call because it was in a location that, was out in the mountains, and it was just not doable for our team to go out there, or maybe there was nobody, it kind of just depends on one reason or another. Maybe first responders did not call us for one reason or another. But if we ever do get the call, or the coroner's office will give us the information, we always reach out to them and hope to set up a delayed visit. Maybe that's in the days or weeks that follow. And I can see that a chat came up. So Lisa, if there are any questions, you can stop me. Hospital visit is usually what happens. There is a person is taken to the hospital and they end up dying in the hospital, but usually they're set up for organ donation is usually what's been our experience so far. And so they do have time, which I think is a unique opportunity for the family to be able to say goodbye to them and kind of, do organ donation. So we have gone into the hospitals. We've helped give teddy bears with recording devices so that the hospital can record the heartbeat of the about to be deceased, and they could put it in a teddy bear for the kids or the spouse to have. That's just allowed us to do different things in the hospital that we don't necessarily get to do on scene. So that's been just a sweet way to kind of serve that family. Death notifications are when maybe someone dies out of county, and the family resides here in Fresno County. And so the police or sheriffs or chaplains will go to the home to do a death notification, and then we go with them. And so they introduce us immediately. Or sometimes there's a missing persons, going on, and they do discover the deceased. And so then we can go and notify them as well. So the average number of people served on a scene. So that's just how many family members or friends are present on average, which is 4. But the total number of people that we've been able to serve in this first year on lost calls is 282. So that's 282 friends and family present between all the 69 calls that we've been on. We've been able to give a folder or resource packet to anyone on scene who wants one. Sometimes people are like, no, I'm good, thanks. But we've been able to give out 167 of those. On average, it takes us 42 minutes to arrive on scene. So that's pretty good considering how big Fresno County is. Sometimes they're in Oakhurst or Riverdale or Shaver or Auberry, so 42 minutes on average. And then we spend typically 51 minutes on scene. And so before the lost team went up and we were kind of figuring out how we were going to make this lost team work, we had estimated that we would arrive within 1 hour and that we'd stay between 30 and 60 minutes. So those were accurate, and those are those numbers. Any questions on this slide in particular? I know that's a lot of information.
Dewan just said, I want to encourage us to report out the numbers with some comparative data. For example, by race, how does that compare to the population? For zip code, perhaps compare suicide rate per 1,000 population.
Okay. Yeah, we could do that, Dawn. Okay, yeah. We could definitely do that moving forward. Any other questions? No? Okay. So, let me see. This is kind of just a before and after the lost team of how we've been able to provide support and therapy in our support groups. So the first column, or I guess the middle column, is the 15 months prior to the lost team going live. And then the third column is the 15 months since the lost team was approved in April, which is when it went before the Board of Supervisors. And the reason that we're using those dates is because immediately once that was approved, we started giving no charge therapy sessions to anyone in the county. We did not actually start responding to active lost scenes until July, but we were doing a lot of delayed ones in that time. So prior, you could see that new clients admitted into service at our Center for Grief and Healing with Hines Hospice. 15 months prior, we had 135 survivors of suicide lost clients. With the lost team in place, that went up to 332. Total therapy sessions, these are all for survivors of suicide loss. We had 156 prior, and with the lost team, that went up to 457. 43 individuals receiving therapy before and 91 after or during. Before the lost team went in place, we had a couple small grants that would allow us to provide some no-charge therapy on a very limited level. And so we were able to give out 57 no-charge therapy sessions before, obviously with the contract and DBH helping to provide that, those funds to be able to do that. We give every client, every individual, whether it's friend, spouse, family, colleague, whatever. If you're a survivor, you are eligible for 6 no-charge therapy sessions. And so that was a really great way to get people through the door. So that went from 57 to 264. So at the end of those 6 sessions, we work with them to either utilize their insurance, they could do private pay, or they can do sliding scale. But we don't turn people away based off of funds, because we always want them to remain getting the services and support that they need. But that is we've been told many times by clients, that's why they came in, is because of those no charge sessions. So that's a huge benefit. So before the loss team, we had 344 people attending our monthly support groups, which is just a peer open group led by fellow survivors. That did go down a bit. But one of the reasons I think is COVID. One is that we opened a new 12-week support group. And so there was a few reasons for that. I think we took maybe maybe 1 month break, 2 month break. And then we put all of our support groups for the peer one online. So now that is still utilizing Zoom twice a month. Our 12-week group attendance went up. Before we had 7 children and 0 teens in service. And now we had that first year, 18 children and 5 teens. So that went up. Bereavement phone calls. So we make 5 phone calls to the family during the first year of following the loss. So that'll be, one is right 2 weeks out. And then it's like a month out, a few months out, and then right before the 1 year anniversary. So they'll get 5 phone calls that first year. So that first year before the loss team, we made 199 phone calls. This year we made 725. So those are family members who are constantly being checked in on. Sometimes they'll ask for more calls, and so we'll give them additional calls if needed. And that's just checking on, hey, how are you doing? What does your support look like? Do you have support? How, a lot of the things that we're talking about right now are, especially the beginning of COVID, I'm going to wait the 2 weeks, the initial 2 weeks before we can have a funeral service. And then that got prolonged into months and months, and so that has complicated grief. And so we've been able to kind of help families walk through that. And, there's been a whole lot of things that have been complicated due to COVID and isolation. But we have been able to connect with, make 725 phone calls, which I think is phenomenal. Mailings, we send out a mailing once a month for the first year as well. These are tips and articles on how to, what typical grief responses look like, how to make it through the holidays, kind of those things that are good to know during the first year. And we have great feedback on those. We send out 345 the year prior, and this year, almost 1,900. Moms to Moms events, this is for all moms in the county who've lost a child to suicide. Our big event is our annual luncheon, which we had to cancel this year, but we have moved those to Zoom. So we did see increases those, as well as a memorial service, which will also get moved to Zoom. Are there any questions on any of that data?
Yes. Are these resources sent to families who were receptive to services?
Are these resources sent to families that what?
Sorry, I typed it in. I'll speak for it, no worries.
Yeah.
Thank you. So what I meant to say was the resources that you were talking about that you guys mail out for within the first year, are those sent out to families that are only receptive to the services or just in general?
Yeah, so we, it's only to families that are receptive of it, who will present it on the loss call, or while we're talking to them on a phone, while making those bereavement phone calls, we'll ask, hey, do you want to be included in our monthly mailings? Because some of them we don't have the addresses for. Some have been, I don't want anything sent to my home. I'm not going to read it, whatever it is. So they are knowingly, willingly signing up to be, knowing that they're not going to receive anything that's not a bereavement letter.
Got it. Okay, thank you.
Yeah, of course. Are there any other questions on that? No, okay. We did commit to doing 4 trainings in the community this past year. We were able to do 42. So that includes 34 QPR, 7 critical incidents trainings that we do with Ken Katz and Chris Roop for all the police officers and first responders. And then we were able to do a cool presentation with the psychologist of Fresno Unified. So we had 907 people learn about the loss team, learn about suicide signs, and how to get resources and connection here in the community. So, okay. So are there any questions or comments specifically about the loss team? Okay. Moving on then. Okay, as we had mentioned earlier, Suicide Prevention Awareness Month is currently going on. So there are a lot of events, webinars, and trainings, and they're all for free. So the best way to learn more information and kind of get connected or sign up and registered for any of these is to visit the FresnoCares.org website. Brian and team have done a great job of getting all of that set into one place. So go there and check it out. You can click on the event of your choice, and then there's a link to register or how to get more info. So we're going to go through a couple of them, just so you know. As we mentioned earlier, there are 2 drive-through resource fairs taking place. One is tomorrow, and the next is on September 19th. And those are located in the 2 zip codes that we mentioned that had the highest suicide rates. So Central High School East and Clovis High School here in Clovis. And again, they're just drive-through resources, so you don't have to get out of your car. They'll just drive up. They'll give you a whole bunch of, a bag with a bunch of resources. And so that's coming up tomorrow and then 2 weeks from now as well. The coffee sleeves and coasters activity that has become kind of fun over the years of being able to get all of those, knowing the signs, are taking place, and they will be at the locations of Kids Cafe, Cup of Joy, Fulton Street Coffee, and High Top Coffee. And so you can go to any of those places and get those on your coffee. The American Foundation for Suicide Prevention is doing Out of Darkness Walk this year. However, it will be virtual, but you can find out more information on that. And it's taking place October 17th. So it is not during Suicide Prevention Awareness Month, but it will be in October, which is usually a Saturday morning, I believe. I don't have the date. At 10 a.m.
So.
Thanks, Lisa. Okay, I'm going to turn this one over to Chris Rube, and she's going to talk more about NAMI.
Yeah, thanks, Brandy. NAMI Ending the Silence is our presentation that is, it has 3 different modules for suicide prevention and mental health awareness. And we delivered one last night for families. We would be more than happy to schedule another one if we had interest from other family members in the community or for a specific site. We did deliver it virtually. It went well. We did not have very many attendees, but that happens when it, maybe it's the time of the day that we presented it, but we sent out a link for people to register. We do have more people registered for the upcoming presentations, which are NAMI Ending the Silence specifically for students, and that's middle and high school students. We have one of those scheduled on Tuesday afternoon. We scheduled it at 4 in the afternoon so that students didn't have a conflict with school. Hopefully we'll have more register as well. We do have 2 scheduled for the month. And then we have NAMI Ending the Silence, which is for school staff, teachers, and any other school staff. That's scheduled for September 15th, and it's in the evening. Again, we'll deliver it virtually. We do have people signed up for that from all over. We have Alma, Sanger, Madera, and I think Coalinga Huron are some of the attendees that will be joining us for that presentation. These are open just to the general community. We are more than happy to schedule presentations for your individual sites if that's something that's more helpful. We have been in conversation with doing this for all of Madera Unified and rolling it out in several different sessions so that they can participate in the presentation. It's very powerful. At the end of the presentation, a short share is done by a young person who shares their journey of living with mental health challenges and their experiences through their young adolescent ages and where they are today. Every time we've presented, the feedback has always been that that's the most powerful part of the presentation and ties it all together. So I invite you, if you're interested in seeing what the presentations look like, please sign up for one of the sessions. Or if you'd like something done specifically for your school site, please reach out and let us know so that way we can start the planning for that.
Perfect. Thanks, Chris.
You bet.
Okay, AFSP, again, Talk Saves Lives is coming up, and there are all the training dates. There's basically one every week for the next 3 weeks. And all of that information obviously is at Fresno Cares. And then this is a cool event, suicide prevention through Central California Regional Summit. And so that is Fresno County has partnered with San Luis Obispo, Kern, and Tulare counties to bring a regional suicide prevention summit and training. All are welcome to attend. There are 4 workshops. And I know that Chris, you're presenting on a panel, right? I know Noah Whitaker is presenting as well from Tulare County. And then
It's going to be Stan Collins.
Oh, yeah, Stan.
There's something on nourishing the brain. Chris, one of the slow behavioral health people will be on the live panel. And then you could get 6 CE credits, and make sure you sign up separate on the link that's in Fresno Cares if you want the CE credits.
Yes, and it's next Wednesday, I believe, right?
Yes.
Yes, and so it's an all-day thing. And they're like, I'm glad you mentioned the CEUs. If you do need them, there was a separate link to sign up for them, and they're free. So.
And we have over 500 people signed up already.
That's right. You told me to say that. Living Works Youth Summit launch. This is hosted by San Diego County Office of Education and the California Department of Education. So that's a good one for all students, staffs, and teachers. So. And then youth mental health first aid. Anyone who works with youth and adolescents. Understanding grief is a webinar that Heinz Hospice puts on for those who have lost a loved one. In grief in general, it doesn't have to be suicide, but there is a link to that video. And then there's a few videos that were made. I think we're going to watch Chris's right now. We did some videos, and this is a cool thing. We did a 360-degree look at suicide. So there's ideation, attempt survivors, success stories, and then survivors, those who've been bereaved by suicide. So we kind of did a cool little 360-degree view, and I think we're going to watch Chris's thing right now. So I'm going to stop sharing mine and let Brian take over on that.
Hi, my name is Chris Root, and I want to share a story with you about my journey living with mental health challenges. If you'd have asked me about 7-8 years ago if I thought I had mental health challenges, I would have looked at you like you had 2 heads. But what I learned along the way through a lot of education and support is that I have had mental health challenges. And they started when I was fairly young. When I was 18 years old, my boyfriend broke up with me, and I didn't know how I was going to get through that. Probably my first serious relationship, so it was devastating. But my answer to that was a suicide attempt. And while that's tragic, I was really encouraged to never talk about it again and not let anybody know what had happened. It's a common life thing we experience, but for me, it was devastating. But I did as I was asked to do to honor all the people around me, and I kept quiet about that. And I picked things back up and moved on. I graduated college, moved out of state, found a great job, a great career, and did all the things that come in life that you enjoy. I got married and had babies, and life seemed great. And then life wasn't so great, and a few things started to not go so well. Just, again, typical life challenges that we face. I lost my job that I had had for so very long, a career of over 20 years. In addition to that, I had lost my younger brother, which was the second brother I lost due to an accident. At the same time, another unfortunate life event was happening, and my marriage was coming to an end. During that time, I started a relationship with someone that I thought was fantastic, and that relationship turned out to be quite abusive. And so I had a lot of things that were happening around me in my environment that weren't very good to be a part of and experience. But those weren't the things that I could control around me. The things I could control, like eating well and sleeping well, taking care of myself physically with good exercise and just healthy habits overall all stopped. I wasn't sleeping well or doing any of those things that are common knowledge for us to participate in to keep ourselves healthy. I also started to isolate myself from other people because I didn't really want anybody to know what was really going on inside my head. But those thoughts that I had had when I was younger started to creep back in. And I didn't see any other way out. And you've heard me share about the good things. I had friends, I have family, I have children. Those things didn't seem to make any sense or really matter because no one was really reminding me about those things, and my perception had really changed. And I believed that the solution to all of those problems that I had was to end my life. And so I attempted suicide again as an adult. Fortunately, I was surrounded by a group of people that learned and took the time to know what signs looked like, and slowly started to reach out to me and ask if there were things they could do to support me. And I'm truly grateful for that. And I learned a lot about how to take care of myself through the work that I have in my current work with NAMI. I learned that I'm not alone. I learned that there are providers out there that I need to visit with and actually step into a system of care to get help. I couldn't do it on my own. I needed to have others helping me along the way. And it was a combination of different things. Talking openly with my doctor was the key to getting the right combination of treatment that I needed. And then opening up and sharing with my friends what was really going on and the struggle that I was experiencing. And then I learned how to tell my story to others because it was someone else sharing their story in a setting that helped me understand I'm not alone and I can get through this. Things might seem dark at a short period of time, maybe even a long period of time, but reaching out to others to get that help and telling someone about my own story was the connection I needed to get healthier and get better. And so while I've had multiple suicide attempts, I am a survivor. I also am in a place where I thrive, and I feel very happy to be where I'm at. I manage a nonprofit organization. I get to spend great time with my children, great time with friends and family, and educate others about this journey so that others don't struggle. Others get to help sooner than later. So that's my story I wanted to share. I hope it gives you hope to know that you're not alone. Take that step and reach out and ask someone to help you. And if you know someone who's struggling, if you see someone struggling and hear that they may be losing hope and making statements of that, please reach out. Please give them some support and let them know you're there to help them through it.
Awesome. Well done, Chris. I love it. Good job. Go back to. So there are a few videos. You can find them on the YouTube channel for Fresno County Department of Behavioral Health. I think Brian is going to add them to Fresno Cares. They will be released all next week on Fresno County Department of Behavioral Health's Facebook page. So you will be able to access all of those as well. Oh, there's more questions, but I can't see them. Lisa's there.
Oh. Nope, just saying good job, Chris.
Oh, perfect. Yes, I agree. She did fantastic. Okay, announcements. I know Ahmad wanted to share one. It's not on here, but about some new legislative things, Ahmad.
Yeah, just real quick. One of the bills that we had been tracking and talking about this year was Assemblyman Ramos's bill AB 2112, and that was going to be a bill that would establish a California Office of Suicide Prevention. It was actually one of the recommendations in the OAC's, the Mental Health Services Oversight Accountability Commission's suicide prevention plan. That was one of their key recommendations, was to create a state office of suicide prevention. That office would be under the California Department of Public Health and really help us start addressing suicide as a public health issue, bringing more attention, more resources. And part of the part of that office is going to be to coordinate more care resources, things like that statewide. So that's a bill that a lot of us were hoping for and supported. So it actually cleared over the weekend. I think it was like late Sunday. It's been sent over to the governor's desk. Um, if you want to encourage the governor to sign this bill, so three things can happen once this bill goes to him. He's got 30 days at this point, a little under 30 days, to react to the bills, all the various legislations. He can veto it, he can sign it, or, and I believe with this one falls under one of the guises of the ones that if there's no action taken, it also becomes law. So really, we just need them to either sign it or just leave it alone and let us get this thing through. If that's something that you're interested in, again, we're not lobbying, we cannot lobby, but you all as individuals or within your organizations, we can't as a government entity, but for example, Brandy and Heinz could, if they wanted to, submit something on behalf of Heinz, or just as individuals. You can submit those. Probably the easiest way to do it is electronically. Can I share my screen real quick, Brandy? I don't even think I have an option. Don't worry about it. Okay, yeah, there you go. Hold on. Where is it? Here. Is that it? Let's see. Okay, so if you go to the governor's page, which is, it's just simple. It's gov.ca.gov, and then just go right here to the contacts. You can click on that one, and then you can put your information in here. They're not allowing people to update or upload letters, and they're saying it's because of viruses, but I think they just don't want to get flooded with like millions of letters. But you can go right here actually to this bottom where it says, please choose your subject, and AB 2112 is actually on here. So it makes it even easy to go to right there. Select that one, AB 2112. I have a comment, continue, and be able to express your support for those. They do have other things they look at, costs, all these other things, but it's clear, like I said, two parts of the House, so they figured out the money for it. And a lot of times when they get a ton of community responses on legislations, they tend to look at those a little more than just lobbying groups, because those are also voters who are going to decide if they're going to vote for officials the next year. So that's just something I want to share with you guys, that it did go through just Sunday. It's been sent over the governor's desk, and so we in the future may have a office of suicide prevention statewide that can help really guide some of the efforts, because I think Brandy may have seen, and David has probably seen, it varies, the efforts and focus from region to region. It varies by county, it varies by resources, and so the state office would hopefully be able to provide some statewide strategies and guidance and things of that sort. So just wanted to give you guys that update, and if that's something you're interested in, that's the option to voice your support. Thanks, Lisa.
Thank you. Yeah. Are there any other announcements from anybody on the call?
Yeah, if you guys want to spread suicide prevention awareness, there's cool backgrounds for Zoom that Ahmad has. There's these lime green ones, and then there's some that are not so green if you prefer. So they're on Fresno Cares if you want to download them. Oh, and we have National Recovery Month ones also that he just changed his to.
Things that are available if you would like them, if you want to put them in front of your nonprofit, or if you own a coffee shop or some sort of store to display, feel free to reach out to me. It just says, let's talk about mental health. And it's just a way to start a conversation. So.
And they're
Nice.
vinyl stickers on them, so they can play. Well, Michael's not going to show behind the green screen, so but they do peel off, so they're not having they're not going to have to go over there with a bunch of stuff to take it off. So we wanted to target businesses and places that are open that still have public traffic. So obviously restaurants, things like that, where people are getting to go and take out on curbside is a great way as like Solomon said, if you still have people coming to your offices, buildings, services, clinics, or if you just know people that own businesses where there's foot traffic, let us know. We can get you those.
Perfect. Also, if there are any any activities that you have or any things coming up that was not announced, please send that over to Solomon or Brian so that it can get put on the Fresno Cares website. Anything that's related to anything, but specifically Suicide Prevention Awareness Month, if you have anything going on. Let's see. Are there any other announcements that anybody would like to chime in with?
Solomon, did we include info on the website as far as those additional training licenses we're getting from Living Works as well? For
Yeah, so we're gonna have Brian post it up on Fresno Cares, and it'll come out in the email that I'll send in the follow-up. We were able to acquire some Living Works Start licenses, in which we'll be able to share with you or anybody who's interested, and we'll give you guys information on how to acquire those. And we plan on launching those on September 10th for Suicide Prevention Day, and the licenses are good for 60 days. So more information to come.
Perfect. Thanks, Solomon.
Greg Sanchez would like to share something.
Okay.
Greg Sanchez with Adult Protective Services here at the County of Fresno Department of Social Services. This is my actually first attending the first meeting. I'm here with David Tamlin, who's also one of our other supervisors. And one of the things talking about suicide prevention and awareness, our population is dependent in older adults. So we understand that right now there's also significant issues related to COVID, isolated older adults being in their own homes, not getting enough contact, and increased domestic violence and relationship issues. So we want to make sure that we're on the table and that we're sharing information, and that our partners also make sure they include the dependent adult and older adult populations as well.
Yeah, thank you for saying that, Greg. That's a great reminder. Thank you. Okay. Let's see. Our next meeting will be Friday, October 2nd. Location probably right here, but to be determined. We'll leave it up in the air just in case. Same time, same bat channel. Any other questions, comments, anything anybody wants to share for anything that you've heard today?
So this is David Tamblin with Fresno County APS. I just had one question, and it was back on the stats. Is there any way to get like an age range of the population, like 18 to 24, with this many suicides or attempts, just so we can have an idea of our elderly population and dependent adult populations, what that looks like for us?
Yeah, so we can't do attempts. I personally can't do attempts. I don't know if anybody could do that. For suicide deaths, we could do that for you for sure.
Great, thank you.
Yeah, it'll take a minute, but I think that we can make it happen for sure.
I'm on it.
Thanks, Kelly. That's why we Kelly. The best death beauty corner in the country.
I want to say thank you real quickly, if I can, on here to Kelly's help and David's help and Brandy's help. We've had a tremendous amount of requests, not just locally and not just from, for example, our admin downtown, county admin, but from news outlets across the nation and back east that have been asking us for a lot of data based on our June suicide numbers and some of the local coverage. And people have been trying to look at that, as you're looking nationally and looking at what our numbers are. And so we've regularly been reaching out to Brandy, Kelly, and David and trying to get info on, like, well, what are the numbers as of right now? And do you have the numbers from 2016? And do you have what the call volume is? And so I would say it's probably been at least once a week, Solomon and I have reached out to, if not each of you, but at least one of you, trying to ask for that data. And it's been an immediate response. And I know for you guys, it's busy with the work David's doing and Brandy, and also having 3 Zoom sessions going on outside your door, Brandy. And then for Kelly with everything else they have going on, and they've been just, Johnny on the spot getting us that data. So we've been able to respond to press inquiries with that. So that's been awesome. And thank you guys so much for that.
Yeah, and you're welcome, but none of my data is possible without Kelly and her team. So I'm just gonna turn all the applause over to her for sure. Okay, anything else? No. Okay. Well, it's good to see all of you, and please utilize all the resources and that are coming out over the next week. Please share them, all the videos, the drive-through fairs, resource fairs. Reach out to Solomon if you have any questions, and I know he'll do a follow-up. David, you could send those slides to Solomon. That'd be helpful. And yeah, take care of yourselves. Have a good September, and we'll see you in October.